Welcome to this edition of One Mission Podcast. We're delighted that you're listening. And today I have a very special friend who is the Executive Director of South Carolina Baptist Convention. And his name is Dr. Tony Wolfe. Tony has really excelled as a leader through the years. He's now been at South Carolina Convention for a number of years. But previous to that, he worked at the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention. He's been a pastor, he's a learned individual, and more recently, he's been one of the emerging premier leaders in Southern Baptist life in relationship to our understanding and study of cooperation. He helped spearhead the Cooperative Program celebration in May of this year, marking the 100th anniversary of that splendid, genius kind of effort God has given us in the Cooperative Program. We welcome Tony. Hey, glad to have you, friend.
Thank you, Dr. Lance. Man, I feel like I need to spend the rest of my life just trying to become the person that you tell everyone I am.
That and more. And I've said to you before, and I'll say to the listeners, it doesn't embarrass me. I don't have a son, but if I did have one, I'd want him to be just like you. That's the best personal affirmation I can give you.
Well, you have been a source of constant fatherly encouragement, inspiration, and wisdom for me. So I thank God for you.
Well, listeners, you probably realize this isn't the Mutual Admiration Society moment for us, but we'll get into the depth of our podcast subject matter. Tony, we always begin when we have guests here with your background, your upbringing and coming to the Lord and conversion, your call to ministry, and the pathway to the present moment of leadership. Would you just kind of sketch that out for us?
Sure. I'm so grateful to God for how he was active in my past and is now. I'm the son of a Southern Baptist pastor, and he was a Southern Baptist pastor when I was a child, and he still is today. He's 75, and he pastors a church in North Louisiana. He and my mom both serve in ministry there together. But I'm the youngest of 5 sons to them, and we grew up there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and learned everything good I know about ministry and life in general from watching my parents, who loved the Lord Jesus and loved each other and loved us.
I guess you're an LSU fan.
Go Tigers. I am, especially today, on this day of this recording, after LSU Tigers won the College World Baseball Series. So
congratulations.
Thanks for letting me throw that in there. I appreciate that. So at an early age, came to faith in Christ. My dad led me to the Lord, baptized me as well into the body of faith there. And then I was called into music ministry when I was 17 years old. I was 17 years old the summer before my high school senior year, started leading worship. Of course, back then they didn't call it worship pastor or music minister. I was a song leader.
Yeah.
Song leader. And man, that little church was very formative in God's grace, multiplied to me and made manifest toward me in ministry, surrendered to ministry there. And then I spent 13 years in music and Christian counseling and discipleship ministries and Christian education. And my wife, Vanessa, and I were married when we were both 18, had our first son when I was 20. And so we started early in everything, in life and ministry and marriage and parenting. And then for 5 years, a little over 5 years, I pastored a church in East Texas and just saw the hand of God at work through evangelistic growth. It was incredible. Just a mighty movement of God in that congregation. And spent 6 years at the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention and denominational leadership there, working primarily with pastors, and then as the associate exec. A little over 2 years here in South Carolina as the executive director, treasurer, and CEO of the South Carolina Baptist Convention. It's been one of the greatest joys and honors of my life.
And coming from the newest convention in Southern Baptist life to the oldest, that had to be a bit of a transition, right?
It was lots of really good surprises for me. I'm a huge Baptist history nerd. You know that, Dr. Lance, and pretty much you name something you like or don't like about Baptist history, it probably started in South Carolina. So it's been an educational journey for me just to serve here.
Yes, and these past 2 years have just flown by, haven't they?
They have. But I'm telling you what, I know it's not a mutual admiration society, but it's been so much easier because of state execs like you and a couple others that I know I can call on at any time for wisdom and encouragement.
Well, put us all together and you might have just a little cup of wisdom, but we're glad to be of any help to you. Tony, tell us a little bit about the 100th anniversary of the Cooperative Program, that celebration in May, and your part in it, and the part you played, and also the book, The Unity of Purpose, which you were very instrumental in pulling together in a compilation of contributors. If you could talk about that a few moments, I think our listeners would really enjoy knowing something of the backstory.
Sure. So when I was at the SBTC, about 2.5 years ago, about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, the EC president at the time called together a really small ad hoc team of CP influencers from the States. And we just started asking the question, how can we celebrate the centennial anniversary of the Cooperative Program? And there were lots of ideas thrown around. Some of them were great. Some of them were terrible ideas. But just in brainstorming, dream sessions, that always happens. And then there were two, I just had two little ideas. One was a commemorative celebration at the exact location, at the exact time of the vote that instituted the Cooperative Program, May 13th, 1925, there in Memphis, Tennessee. And the other was a book commissioned by the EC to catalog and celebrate the history of 100 years worth of Cooperative Program missional engagement. And for various reasons, the team as an organized structure kind of fell apart. That's a long backstory. But those two things remained, and there was some leadership changes in the EC and other factors that played into this. But I felt like the Lord had put these two things on my heart, and they had originally been entrusted to me by the leadership at the time, so we just moved forward with it. And then in consultation with a few other state execs like yourself, we just made it happen. So the CP Centennial Celebration, actual May 13th, 2025 celebration in Memphis, Tennessee, I felt like it was a great day for Southern Baptist influencers and leaders to be in that room from every entity, every state convention, every affinity group we could imagine, to come together and sign a declaration of cooperation saying that we believe this is a good, healthy, and biblical thing for us to do. And we're not only thankful for its past, but we're committed to its future. And I felt like, Dr. Lance, there was great joy in the room and great excitement and passion about what God has done, is doing, and will do through the Cooperative Program. And then the other item that you mentioned is a unity of purpose. Dr. Madison Grace, who's the provost at Southwestern, is a friend of mine. He and I co-edited this book from about, I think, 13 or 15 different Southern Baptist leaders who gave voice to a biblical and theological, missional, historical celebration of the Cooperative Program. And that's what a unity of purpose is. It just kind of collects the voices of CP influencers and leaders, Southern Baptist leaders, who can celebrate the good work that God has done through the Cooperative Program, the biblical foundations for the Cooperative Program, historical context, and even lean into the future in anticipation of what God might do in the future through the Cooperative Program.
Well, it's an excellent work, Unity of Purpose, and it's being widely distributed, and we're looking forward to people being much more enriched in terms of the background and educated as to the rationale for the Cooperative Program. And hopefully this portends a brighter future for the Cooperative Program as well. Let's talk about that just for a moment. Springboarding from the 100th anniversary of the Cooperative Program, give us some ideas how we might sense a renewal of focus and a rededication to the Cooperative Program, and that is giving through it. You don't give to it, you give through it. It's a conduit, a channel, not a destination. You know that, and I know it, but that power of the preposition, a through, speaks volumes more than a to. So talk a moment about how we can look forward perhaps to being able to enjoy even brighter days with a Cooperative Program emphasis.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we talk about what we've lost or feel like we've lost without talking about how we lost it. So I don't think we've lost the Cooperative Program. If you think about it, we're still $190 million a year given through the Cooperative Program. That's $190 million.
Well, if you count everything through the states, it's more like 500 million.
Right, exactly. And $10 billion total coming in to local churches from the sacrificial giving of Southern Baptist. So the resources, I mean, God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He supplies all of our needs according to his riches and glory. And so Southern Baptists are not lacking for financial resources. And even with, $190 million sent nationally, that's nothing to shake a stick at. I mean, that's a big resource for us to help mobilize generations of Christ followers to take the gospel to our neighborhoods and to the nation. So I don't think we've lost it, but it is less. There's been a downward trajectory from 2009 up until today, less and less money coming in through the Cooperative Program. At the same time, more and more Southern Baptists are giving more to God's kingdom work through their local churches, about a 20% increase over the last 9 or 10 years of Southern Baptists giving to their local churches. But a significant decrease, 19% nationally in South Carolina, 27% decrease in the same time period of churches giving through the Cooperative Program. So, and that there are lots of reasons. I mean, if you just think through health insurance costs and the cost of doing business in general, then that eats up the entire 20% and more. But then there's also, Dr. Lance, there's something we don't talk about much, and we almost lost an entire generation of understanding, of appreciation for knowledge of the Cooperative Program. When we lost, and I'm about to sound like an old man, you ready for this? When we lost,
well, you are an old man in a young body.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not really sure. So when we lost RAs and GAs,
yes,
we lost an entire generation. We lost our vehicle. We really only had that vehicle for proliferating a love for and a devotion to the entirety of our Southern Baptist enterprise to the next generation. And I'm not trying to say bring back RAs and GAs. I'm just saying we kind of let that slide, and then we didn't replace it with anything. So for whatever reason, we didn't pass down to the current generation, Gen X and under, I would say, actually at least millennials and under. We didn't pass down to them a love for and a knowledge of Cooperative Program and Southern Baptist Great Commission enterprise. And I think that's how. So now we have to ask, well, how do we regain an appreciation for and knowledge of? Well, it's got to be an all hands on deck, robust strategy to educate and to celebrate what God does through the Cooperative Program. And I do think we see a revival of that. I do think that across the states right now, you have more and more people, pastors and even associational leaders and denominational leaders talking about the value of the Cooperative Program. The Centennial Celebration has brought us a good opportunity for that as well.
Well, I trust the energy involved in that will just continue to have productivity in the future. I have been around long enough to remember, I'm going back to David Hankins' book, A Sacred Trust. In 1988, in terms of all missions, the local church averaged giving 18%, and then 11.5% of that was giving through the Cooperative Program. Now, and this data is kind of faded and it may not be totally accurate, it's more like a total of 10% for missions, and of course, slightly more than half of that, or around that figure, is giving through the Cooperative Program. Now in Alabama, our average is a little higher than that. We're doing a little better in terms of that, but the pressures of becoming a large denomination with enormous diversity, and we have to face it with ethnic groups and minorities, they're trying to play catch up and being educated in the Cooperative Program and how we do Southern Baptist life. And they don't have the benefit of some of us who grew up in it. And then there's a whole generation of young leaders, including pastors, who did not have that kind of background either. And you couple with that the Great Recession, which began in 2008, which could well have been, if you study a little bit of economics, that could have been another depression. It could have been maybe not a Great Depression, but a depression. It bordered on it. In Alabama, we lost over a period of time. We went to a high of $46 million in Cooperative Program budget to a low of $37 million. Now we bounced back some. The churches, as you well stated, they've increased in their receipts, but a lot of it is staying more closely at home. There's this tendency always to have hands-on missions, which has a value, of course, and community missions certainly has a value, but we've lost some of that collective energy, and the focus now we've got to regain that. And it will take a team approach from SBC leaders, state convention leaders, associational leaders, and pastors to be able to help our churches understand the value. The default position is always to head towards societal giving. The difference, if we go there, and I don't think we will, but if we go there, we will have known better. Prior to 1925, we didn't know any better. Now we know better. So I'm praying that there will be, as you well stated, a revitalization, a reemphasis on the cooperative program, which will help us not only in the present, but in the future as you and others see God's hand at work in Southern Baptist life in the future. Let me, unless you had another thought, I want to transition.
I was going to say, like I had mentioned, the intergenerational, the lack of passing down appreciation for, knowledge of, but like you said, it's not one thing. It's a great confluence of a matrix of factors.
Perfect
that
storm.
Exactly, that have contributed to it. But I will say this, that if we go back to societal giving, which the talk is, if you're a student of Baptist history and I wasn't there in 1925, I think you were, but I wasn't there. So I was just kidding.
Young kid, but I was there.
Right, you're young, but you were there. And so, we don't really have an experiential knowledge of what that was like for every Sunday, for another appeal to come from the pulpit, and for the pastor really to not even be able to receive a salary, because or the salary he should receive, because every Sunday direct appeals were given. And then for 40% overhead from institutions to employ, fundraisers. I mean, we don't have an experiential knowledge of that. But here's what I think. For 416 years, Dr. Lance, Baptists have cooperated financially to advance the Great Commission locally and nationally and internationally. And if we lose the cooperative program, I think the cooperative program it became in 1925, it became the pinnacle of organizational Baptist financial cooperation intercongregationally. Yeah. If we lose it in this generation, eventually we will build something a lot like it again, because I feel like Baptists are going to cooperate. We're going to do it in the most organized and strategic way we possibly can. 416 years of Baptist history have proven that. So if we lose it now, it won't be long before we build something else a lot like it in the future.
Yeah, almost like reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
One of the pressures, and I didn't mean to get into this, one of the pressures on us right now would be the seemingly ever-growing, in Louisiana terms, the kudzu approach to the growth of affinity groups who tend to want to network. And they do come to the SBC, but they're more concerned about their network and doing things pretty much the same, like-minded. They're almost the same. It's not a more broadly diverse kind of representation of Southern Baptists as a whole. Those kind of pressures, and they're natural, they've always been there, but seemingly we have a little bit more of them now than before. Not to be critical, there's not one way to do missions, and not just one way to do work in ministries and denominational like the SBC. However, the most proven way and the most impactful way through our history has been the cooperative program. Prior to 1925, you go from 1845, to, as you well know, to 1925. You had 80 years of just kind of doing what's in front of us and hoping we can send missionaries. Well, at the pinnacle of our IMB force, I can remember this because I was on the board then, we had more than 5,000, more like 5,200 missionaries on the field. And it's just astounding. I had a Free Will Baptist preacher tell me years ago, he'd become a Southern Baptist. He said, I would spend 6 months as a missionary raising funds and 6 months overseas. And he said, I'm a big cooperative program guy. I believe in what we're doing. And that's why I'm a Southern Baptist. And he looked me in the eye and he said, be sure you guys keep it that way. For if you lose it, you will never know what you lost until you're there. To me, that was a very foreboding prospect, but also one of affirmation, and I deeply appreciate him doing that. Well, I want to ask you some leadership questions, value your insights. Do you have, can you tell us, the listeners here in Alabama, some things you've learned as a first chair leader in the last 2 years, which might be helpful to pastors out there, certainly helpful to me to hear from you, and there may be others as well. Would you like to share a few of those?
Yeah, yeah, I'd be glad to. Thanks for asking. Some of these things I think all of your listeners know, but from my position and where I am now over the last couple of years, I've realized just how true they are. One of which I would say, and I tell my staff this all the time, language creates culture.
Absolutely.
Language creates culture. So, Proverbs 18 says it like this: the power of life and death are in the tongue, and those who love it eat its fruit. So the more you say something, the more it becomes true of you. And that is brought to bear on team dynamics and team culture as well. So, like for instance, we don't use in South Carolina, our organizational model is a little different from some other state conventions, definitely from the national convention today, the way it is now. But we don't use affiliation language. It's not to say that there's not some kind of familial connection and affiliation in a loose, non-legal sense, but the word affiliate and affiliation has just come to mean something in this SBC culture that really is not conducive to the way we are governed in South Carolina. So we just don't even use the word affiliate. It's not even in our bylaws. We use cooperate. So we don't talk about affiliated churches, we talk about cooperating churches.
That's right.
And that means something. I mean, the more you replace affiliation language with cooperation language, we're seeing it take effect now, man. We're cooperating churches. It's not about some kind of form you fill out. It's about the ongoing activity of working together to get the gospel to the nations. That's just one small example. There are all kinds of examples. The things you say and how you say them, they become who you are, whether you want to or not. So you have to be really careful about language, especially from the leadership chair. People hang on every word you say. And so language always creates culture. Or another way to say it is words create worlds. I heard a friend say that once. Words create worlds.
That's good.
Another just general principle I'd say is don't avoid hard conversations. There's never a time when if you just avoid a hard conversation, it gets better. It doesn't ever get better. You have to have the hard conversations, of course, in a spirit of humility. I'd say always assume that I try to always assume that I could be wrong. And I've messed that up a couple times in the last year. I sent an email to several entity leaders. I was a little upset about something. And my tone was all wrong. And the fact that I sent an email was wrong. I have all their phone numbers. I should have just called them. But in the moment, I emailed them. And then I went back probably 3 months later, and it had just eaten at my soul. And instead of picking up a phone and having hard conversations, and instead of assuming that I could have been wrong, I just fired off an email. And that was the dumbest thing I could have done in the moment. And it really hindered some relationships. I've apologized since. I don't want to be that leader. I'm not going to be that leader. Right. And so don't avoid hard conversations, but also assume that you could actually be wrong. Apparently, I'm not right all the time. And then I'll just give one more. In this season of, I don't know if it's this season of SBC leadership or if it's just my season in life, my station in life, mid-40s. I don't know if that's a time when this comes to bear, but there's a time when the Nehemiah Principle really kicks in. And I feel like, at least for me in this chair right now, I've got to live in the Nehemiah Principle. And that's don't come off the wall. Do not come off the wall. There are Tobiases and Sanballats around every corner, and they will try to trip you up and try to suck you in with some negative talk and they'll complain about something, or they'll try to twist words, and all they're trying to do is pull you off of the wall. I mean, Nehemiah says, I'm doing a good work. I cannot come down. And so, and I see, how many leaders do we see, Rick, who on social media, they come off the wall and they start answering people's critiques, and it never makes things better. It always makes it worse. We don't fight our battles on social media. No. And so I just, when I see those things and somebody sends me a screenshot of it, I just tell myself, I can't come down off this wall. There's no reason to lower myself to that standard.
Yeah, what we want to do, of course, is make a difference, not just win an argument.
Exactly.
That's the type of leadership that is intuitive, that looks beyond the moment. A lot of times, and all of us have sent emails like that, where we get caught up in the moment. Something hits you wrong or whatever. Every one of us. It's been a while, but I've done a similar thing, and maybe spent a year or so trying to make it up and apologize, correct it, and rectify it. But thank you for sharing that, a weak moment in leadership, because we all have them. And the idea of language creates culture, and then coming down off the wall, that staying there on the wall is excellent. Tony, we always ask people who are on a guest on our podcast how we can pray for you. And we want to do that before we conclude. And knowing that you are a very perceptive leader, you're a dedicated leader, I think you have a better balance. I know you do than I do in terms of having broader interest. A guy like me doesn't have any hobbies. I tell people I don't hunt or fish. I don't jump out of airplanes, ride motorcycles. I really end up speaking in more WMU meetings than I do men's conferences because of that. But there's a balance to life, and I think you have already cemented that in your own lifestyle. But how can we pray for you, for your family, in order that you might be able to, God willing, to have a long tenure and maximize your service for many more decades yet to come?
Thank you for that. I'll give you two, one for my family and one for me personally. My family's in a really sweet spot right now. We have two sons who are both in ministry, active. They're adults. Remember, we had our first son when I was 20, so we're empty nesters now. I'm 43 and an empty nester, so eat your heart out, listeners. And loving every minute of it. I'm really proud of both of our sons. They're both in ministry. And Vanessa and I, my wife and I, we want to be good examples and coaches for them. We want to celebrate the way God has uniquely wired them and empower them and leverage everything we can for their success in life and ministry. So this is a really good moment for us, I think, as parents, to pour into our own next generation and hopefully share with them the goodness of not just ministry in general, although that's true, but also of the Southern Baptist Convention and
Yes.
good that that God has entrusted to us and to them in this season. So we're praying for that. Just, you go from parent to coach to third-party consultant. And so we're in third-party consultant territory right now, and we want to be good consultants. And then personally, my biggest fear is, and it's going to sound dumb, but I'm really not afraid of anything except unfulfilled potential. And I don't know what my potential is, but my whole plan is to serve the purpose of my generation and rest with my fathers. And that's going to be a great day for me. I have no hesitation at all to go home and be with Jesus whenever he calls me. But what I don't want to do is leave anything on the table here. And I'm mid-40s, and I'm not old, but I'm not young. And I feel like the Lord's been preparing me for a long time for who I am right now. I still feel like he's preparing me right now for who he's, desiring me to be in the future, whatever that looks like. But I don't want to leave anything on the table, Brother Rick. I want to give it everything I have to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ and his glory in our neighborhoods in South Carolina and all over the globe. So I would appreciate prayers to not waste what God's entrusted me.
That's excellent. In fact, you expressed very eloquently my desire as well. So thank you for that. And by the way, sometime soon, we'll talk more about the SBC, because we are concerned about that. We do know that although we're not considered SBC leaders, but we have some SBC influence. Now, you have already emerged as an SBC leader, and we pray that will continue. Your stature will continue. And by the way, let me say again, the convention sermon at the SBC was a classic one. I've never heard a presentation which really focused on cooperation among us. It was timely, it was necessary, and it brought about the opportune moment, the convergence of the celebration with the understanding of cooperation, as well as our conviction related to confession. All of that seemed to come together better at this convention than any time I've ever remember. And I've been going to conventions a long time, longer than I'd like to admit. So thank you, Tony, for your ministry, for your time with us. And to you who are listeners, remember now we have other broadcasts that will be coming. So thank you for listening to One Mission. And remember, we have one mission, the Great Commission. We have one program, the Cooperative Program. We have many ministries. We call them Great Commission ministries. God bless.